Commander Yun Park sat alone in her office as the holographic deed floated in front of her. The blue light illuminated her tired face. She read the document for the 5th time, still not believing what it said. Her great-aunt Ju had left her a planet called XP-2187. This can't be right, Yun whispered to herself. Everyone in the galaxy knew about XP-2187. It was famous for being worthless. The surface was toxic. The weather was deadly. Nothing good grew there. People joked that even criminals wouldn't hide on XP-2187. Her screen lit up with an incoming message. Her assistant's voice came through the speaker. Commander Park, the Galactic Federation is calling again. They've raised their offer to 50,000 credits for the planet. Yun laughed bitterly. 50,000 credits was nothing. A small shuttle cost more than that. The Federation just wanted a cheap place to test their new weapons. Tell them no, she said, closing the message. Instead, she turned to a small wooden box that had arrived with the deed. It was scratched and worn, clearly old. Inside were her great-aunt's personal notebooks, filled with handwritten notes. Yun had always admired great-aunt Ju. She was a famous terraformer who had helped make 12 planets livable for humans. People said she could make gardens grow on bare rock. But why had she bought XP-2187? And why leave it to Yun? As the station's artificial night cycle began, Yun read through Ju's notes. Most were technical writings she didn't fully understand, but certain phrases caught her attention. The toxicity patterns aren't random. The gravitational anomalies follow the fungal bloom cycles. This planet isn't broken. It's speaking a language we don't understand. Yun found sketches of unusual plants and fungi that supposedly grew in hidden valleys on XP-2187. There were calculations suggesting that the planet's strange magnetic fields could be harnessed for energy. By morning, her desk was covered with open notebooks. Her eyes were red from reading all night, but her mind was racing with possibilities. Could her great-aunt have discovered something everyone else had missed? The official surveys classified XP-2187 as a Class F planet, uninhabitable and without value. But Ju had spent 3 years there before her death. Yun opened her computer and searched for recent images of the planet. The official pictures showed a gray-green world wrapped in toxic clouds. But in the margin of one notebook, Ju had written, "They only see what they expect to see." Making the sudden decision, Yun called 3 old friends from her academy days. The screen split into 3 sections as they answered. Tay appeared first. He had been the top student in biology, now running a research lab on the central planets. His eyes were kind behind round glasses. Da connected next, her dark hair now streaked with silver. She had become the leading atmospheric engineer in the outer colonies, famous for fixing air purification systems others couldn't. Hana's face appeared last, her skin tanned and weathered. After graduation, she had chosen a life of adventure, becoming an expert in surviving hostile environments. A small scar crossed her left eyebrow. "I need your help," Yun told them without greeting. "I've inherited a planet." "A planet?" Tai raised his eyebrows. "Which one?" "XP-2187. There was a moment of silence. Then Hana laughed. "The toxic wasteland." "I'm sorry, Yun." "My great-aunt Ju spent her final years there," Yun continued. "She left me her research notes. I think she found something important." "Ju was brilliant," Da said thoughtfully. "If she was interested in that rock, there must be a reason." Yun showed them a few pages from the notebooks. The 3 friends leaned closer to their screens, their expressions changing from doubt to curiosity. "These fungal patterns," Ta murmured. "They shouldn't be possible in that atmosphere. And these energy readings," Dai added. "I've never seen anything like this." Hana simply nodded. "When do we leave?" Yun felt a wave of relief. "You'll come?" "Of course," Ta said. "For science, if nothing else. For adventure," Hana added with a grin. "For you," Dai said simply. "And because if Ju saw a value in that planet, I want to know what it is." Yun looked at her friends' faces, then back at the holographic deed still floating above her desk. The galaxy's worst planet was now hers. And maybe, just maybe, it wasn't as worthless as everyone thought. The shuttle rocked violently as it pushed through the thick clouds surrounding XP-2187. Warning lights flashed across the control panel. Yun gripped her seat tightly as the ship dropped suddenly, then rose again. "This turbulence isn't in any of the official reports," Dai shouted over the noise, her fingers flying across the navigation controls. "These storm patterns make no sense." Ta looked pale, his knuckles white on the armrests. Maybe this wasn't such a good idea after all. Only Hana seemed calm, even as the shuttle lurched sideways. "If it was easy to get here, someone would have claimed the planet's value already," she said simply. After what felt like hours, they'd broke through the lower atmosphere. The ground below was nothing like the flat, barren wasteland from the official surveys. Instead, they saw sharp black rock formations jutting up like teeth, pools of bubbling green liquid that steamed in the cold air, and strange metallic sand that shifted and moved as if alive. There, Yun pointed to a small valley between two ridges. "That matches the coordinates from Great Aunt Ju's notes." Day guided the shuttle down, fighting against winds that seemed determined to push them away. When they finally landed with a heavy thud, everyone sat in silence for a moment, just breathing. "Welcome to paradise," Hana said dryly, already checking her environment suit for the third time. "Let's see what we're dealing with." Their suits were top of the line, designed for the most hostile environments known to humanity. Even so, Yun felt a chill of fear as she sealed her helmet. The nearest backup team was 3 days away. The moment they stepped outside, they understood why XP-2187 had such a terrible reputation. The air was thick with swirling toxins that made their suit sensors beep continuously. The sky wasn't black or blue, but a strange purple-gray, like an enormous bruise. The ground crunched under their boots, sometimes hard as metal, sometimes giving way to sink slightly. "The research station should be just past that ridge," Yun said, checking the small map device on her wrist. They walked slowly, testing each step. Twice they had to back away from patches of ground that bubbled when approached. A flock of small flying creatures, not birds, but something with too many wings and glittering scales, scattered at their approach. "Those aren't in the wildlife reports either," Ta noted, recording them with his suit camera. The research station was half buried under shifting metallic sand. It looked abandoned, its outer shell dull and pitted with corrosion. But the door still opened when Yun pressed her palm to the scanner. "Great Aunt Ju must have programmed it to recognize family DNA," she said as they stepped inside. The airlock cycled, cleaning their suits before the inner door opened. Inside was a single room, dusty but intact. Old-fashioned equipment lined the walls. A small living area with a cot and desk stood in one corner. A basic laboratory setup filled another. "We need to get power running," Day said, already examining the generator. "Good news. It's solar and geothermal, not chemical. With those strange energy patterns outside, it might still work." While Dai worked on the power, the others explored the small station. Yun found more of her great-aunt's notes scattered on the desk. Hana discovered a hidden storage room with supplies, some still usable. Ta examined the laboratory equipment, finding sample containers with dried specimens. When Dai finally got the lights on, something unexpected happened. A small platform in the center of the room lit up, and a holographic figure flickered into existence. The hologram showed a small, simple figure made of blue light. It looked around, then focused on Yun. "Greetings, I am Naira, Neural Assistant Research Aide. Dr. Ju programmed me to activate upon her family's return." The voice was smooth and genderless. Yun stepped forward. "I'm Yun Park, Ju's great-niece. Why did my great-aunt really come to this planet?" The hologram flickered, then expanded to show complex data streams and models around its simple form. Dr. Ju discovered that XP-2187's extreme conditions are not defects, but features of an extraordinarily complex ecosystem. Narrat explained. The planet isn't broken. It's simply operating on principles we don't yet understand. The hologram showed images of the planet's surface changing over time, patterns emerging that looked almost deliberate. That can't be right, Ta said, stepping closer to examine the data. You're suggesting the entire planet functions as a single system. Correct, Nara replied. Dr. Ju believed that what appears to be chaos is actually a form of communication. That night, while they slept in the small station, a storm hit. Acid rain pounded the outer shell, and the walls creaked under the pressure. Small drops leaked through a weak spot, eating away at the outer layer of the station. When morning came, though it was hard to tell through the perpetual gloom outside, they found something strange. Where the acid had dripped through, crystalline structures had formed overnight, catching and somehow filtering the toxic liquid. Ta carefully collected samples, analyzing them with the station's equipment. This shouldn't be possible, he whispered, looking up from the microscope. These crystals are forming complex purification systems. It's as if the planet is adapting to us, responding to our presence. Yun touched the crystals gently. Great Aunt Ju was right. This place isn't what everyone thinks it is. Hana nodded slowly. And I think we've just scratched the surface of what it can do. Retries. 3 months passed quickly on XP-2187. What had started as a single research station now grew into a small but thriving outpost. The team had built 3 new structures connected by covered walkways to protect against the acid rain. They had even cleared a small area for landing additional supply ships. Un stood at the window of the main lab, watching Todd work with the strange fungi they had discovered growing in a deep cave system. The purple-black growths didn't look like much, but they had turned out to be the most valuable discovery yet. The latest batch is ready, Ta called over his shoulder. He carefully placed a sealed container on the workbench. Inside was a glittering blue powder. The fungi processed all the toxic compounds from the soil sample. The resulting material is pure and stable. Day looked up from her atmospheric readings. That's the 3rd new compound this month. The medical applications alone could be worth millions. This particular fungi could absorb the planet's natural toxins and transform them into compounds with remarkable properties. One showed promise as a powerful medicine. Another could store energy more efficiently than any battery. All these discoveries were carefully documented in their growing database. Supply ship incoming, Hana announced as she entered the lab, stamping her boots to shake off the metallic sand. But it's not our regular delivery. It's a Federation vessel. Yun frowned. They had sent their initial findings to the Science Ministry weeks ago, but hadn't expected such a quick response. The Federation ship landed smoothly on their small pad. 5 people emerged, all wearing the standard blue uniforms of government officials. The leader was a tall man with a thin face and calculating eyes. Director Kang, he introduced himself with a short bow. Department of Planetary Resources. The Federation was most interested in your preliminary reports. Un welcomed them cautiously. She had no choice but to give them a tour of the outpost. Impressive progress, Kang commented, eyeing their research lab with particular interest. His gaze lingered on the fungi samples and the data screens. The Federation is prepared to establish a formal research station here, under our management, of course. We appreciate the offer, Yun said carefully, but we're doing well with our current team. Kang smiled without warmth. Commander Park, surely you understand that a planet with such potential can't be left to a small private operation. The Federation has the resources to develop this world properly. We'll consider your proposal, Yun replied, though she had no intention of accepting. That evening, they hosted a simple dinner for the Federation team. Kang asked many questions about their discoveries, especially about the fungi and its valuable compounds. His assistants were quiet, observing everything with careful eyes. Later that night, Hana couldn't sleep. She decided to check on the new atmospheric sensors they had placed on the outpost's roof. As she approached the main lab, she noticed a light that shouldn't be on. Inside, two of Kang's assistants were hunched over the main computer. One held a small device connected to their database. "Downloading something?" Hannah asked coldly from the doorway. The assistants jumped. "Just reviewing some data," one said quickly. Director Kang wanted to see the atmospheric readings. At midnight, without permission, Hannah stepped forward. "Step away from the computer." One of them reached for something in his pocket. Before anyone could move, a strange humming filled the air. Outside, the purple-gray sky suddenly darkened. A targeted electromagnetic storm, much like the ones they had been studying, formed directly above the outpost. A flash of energy came down like lightning, hitting the outpost's communications array. All the lights went out for 3 seconds. When they came back on, the intruder's equipment was smoking and useless. Yet strangely, the outpost's own systems remained untouched. The commotion brought everyone running. Un arrived to find Hannah holding the two Federation assistants at bay. "What happened?" Yun demanded. "They were stealing our data," Hannah explained. "Then that storm hit, just like the ones we've been recording, but this one seemed aimed right at their equipment." Day turned to the holographic interface where Narration floated, observing quietly. "Did you do that?" Day asked Narration, clearly bewildered. "Did you trigger the storm somehow?" "Negative," the eye replied. "I have no control over planetary weather systems. However, Dr. Ju's notes indicate the planet demonstrates patterns consistent with primitive sentience. She theorized that XP-2187 responds to threats against its established biosphere." "Are you saying the planet protected us?" Ta whispered. Director Kang and his team left the next morning. Their mission clearly failed, but promising to return with proper authorization. No one believed they had seen the last of the Federation's interest. After they departed, Yun turned to her most difficult task yet. Using the password found in her great-aunt's personal journal, she finally accessed the encrypted section of Ju's research notes. What she found made her heart race. The notes revealed a detailed terraforming plan unlike any used before. It wasn't about forcing change on XP-2187, but rather guiding and enhancing processes already at work in the planet's unique ecosystem. Yun gathered her team around the main display. Great Aunt Ju understood something fundamental that everyone else missed. She explained, showing them the plans. "We don't change the planet to suit us. We work with what it's already trying to become." The others stared at the complex diagrams, showing how certain fungi could be introduced to specific areas, how energy from the storms could be captured and redirected, how the planet's natural cycles could be gently shifted. "It's brilliant," Da breathed. "This could work." "Then let's get started," Yun said. "Before the Federation decides this planet is too valuable to leave in our hands." A year passed on XP-2187. The planet that everyone had called worthless began to change. Yun and her team worked carefully, following Great Aunt Ju's plans. They didn't try to force the planet to change all at once. Instead, they made small, clever adjustments to help the planet's natural systems work better. In the Northern Valley, they released specially engineered bacteria into pools of toxic liquid. The bacteria slowly ate the worst poisons, turning them into harmless compounds. Within months, the pools changed from sickly green to clear blue. In sheltered areas between the rock formations, they planted modified seeds that could survive the harsh conditions. These plants grew quickly, creating small pockets where the air became breathable. The team built simple domes to protect these areas, and soon they had gardens that produced both food and oxygen. Their small outpost changed too. What began as a single research station with a few connected modules now grew into a proper colony. They built living quarters, laboratories, and even a small meeting hall where everyone gathered in the evenings to share their discoveries. Word of their success spread through scientific networks. The people who came to XP-2187 weren't the usual colonists looking for easy money or new farmland. They were the dreamers, the ones who saw possibilities where others saw nothing. Jin arrived 6 months into the project. He was a young engineer who had been laughed out of the Federation Science Academy for his impossible water reclamation designs. On XP-2187, he found that the unique properties of the metallic sand could make his ideas work. Within weeks, he built systems that pulled clean water directly from the toxic air. Botanist Sun came next. She brought seedlings she had spent years developing for extreme environments. She worked closely with Tai, combining her plants with the native fungi to create new species that thrived in the harsh conditions. Artist Du set up a studio where he captured the strange beauty of the changing landscape. His images, sent back to the central planets, showed XP-2187 not as a wasteland, but as a world of wild and unexpected beauty. By the end of the year, their colony had grown to 30 people. The area around their settlement had changed dramatically. The air was cleaner. Plants grew in protected valleys. The worst toxins had been neutralized in a 10-kilometer radius. But their success brought problems. The Federation, which had once considered the planet worthless, now sought its potential value. The strange compounds produced by the native fungi were worth fortunes. The energy production methods developed by Day and Jin could solve power problems on a dozen colony worlds. The message came on a quiet morning. 3 Federation military vessels had entered orbit around XP-2187. "This is Commander Yoon of the Federation Security Force," came the cold transmission. "Your unauthorized deterraforming activities are in violation of Sector Regulation 47B. Surrender your research and evacuation will be optional." The colonists gathered in the meeting hall, faces worried. "What do we do?" Jin asked, his voice shaking slightly. "We're not soldiers. We can't fight 3 military ships." Yun looked around at the frightened faces. "No," she agreed calmly. "We're not soldiers. We're something better." She turned to Da. "How are the atmospheric processors working?" Day's eyes widened as she understood. "The network is fully operational. We can control weather patterns within 20 kilometers. And Jin, the crystalline formations we found last month, how do they react to ship hull materials?" Jin nodded slowly. "They're attracted to the metal alloys used in standard Federation ships. They'd grow on contact." Yun stood before the colonists. "We've spent a year learning how this planet works. Now we use that knowledge." They moved quickly. Day reprogrammed the atmospheric processors they had placed around the colony. These machines normally helped clean the air, but with new instructions, they began generating controlled electromagnetic pulses, similar to the planet's natural storms, but precisely targeted. The first pulse hit the Federation ships within an hour. Their communications went dead. The second pulse scrambled their navigation systems. "They'll have backups," Hana warned. "This won't stop them for long." "We don't need long," Yun replied. She sent Jin and Sun to the crystal caves. They returned with containers of the strange crystals that formed from the planet's acid rain. Using the small shuttle, they released the crystals into the upper atmosphere, directly in the path of the Federation ships. When the military vessels moved to a lower orbit, preparing to land troops, they passed through the cloud of microscopic crystals. The crystals were attracted to the ship's hull metal, just as Jin had predicted. They attached themselves and began to grow rapidly, spreading across the surfaces of the ships like living ice. The colonists watched on their monitors as crystalline formations spread across the Federation vessels. The formations wouldn't damage the ships immediately, but if the ships tried to leave the atmosphere at high speed, the crystals would shatter the outer hull. After 3 tense hours, a new message came from Commander Yoon. His voice was tight with anger, but also with something else. Respect, perhaps. "Your defensive measures are unexpected. We will withdraw temporarily, but the Federation Council will hear of this." As the ships carefully maneuvered away, crystal formations glittering on their hulls, turned to the colonists. "They'll be back," she said. "But by then, we'll be stronger, and the planet will be even more on our side. For the first time, the colonists began to truly believe that they would succeed. XP-2187 wasn't just a research project anymore. It was becoming their home. 5 years passed. XP-2187 was no longer the same planet that Yun and her friends had first landed on. The colonists had voted to rename it Phoenix, a creature from old Earth legends that rose from ashes to new life. Yun stood on a high cliff, looking out over the Central Valley. The view took her breath away every time. Where there had once been only jagged black rocks and toxic pools, now stretched a landscape of beauty and life. The valley floor was covered with plants in colors not seen anywhere else in the galaxy. Deep purples, blues with silver edges, and tall grasses that shifted from green to gold as they moved in the wind. Small streams of clear water ran between carefully planned gardens and natural growth areas. The once poisonous air had cleared in many regions. When Yun removed her breathing mask and looked up, she could see a sky of stunning purple-blue, with strange cloud formations that created patterns of light and shadow on the ground below. Governor Park. The new settlers are arriving, called a voice from behind her. Yun turned to see Han, her young assistant, hurrying up the path. She smiled at his excitement. Han had been born on Phoenix, the first child to enter the world on a planet once considered too toxic for any life. "I'll be right there," she promised, turning back for one last look at the valley. The small colony had grown into a proper city of 3,000 people. The buildings blended with the landscape rather than fighting against it. Many were partially grown rather than built, using the unique crystalline structures that formed naturally on the planet. Phoenix had become known throughout the galaxy for its unusual resources. The fungi that could process toxins now produced medicines that cured diseases no other treatments could touch. The energy systems designed by Jin and Da, now married with twin daughters, had been adapted for use on dozens of worlds with harsh environments. The path down from the cliff wound past gardens and research stations. Yun nodded to people as she passed. Scientists, farmers, teachers, all working together. She still found it hard to believe sometimes that the worst real estate in the galaxy was now home to one of its most innovative communities. At the landing area, a crowd had gathered to welcome the new arrivals. This ship wasn't bringing scientists or researchers, but families, people who had heard about Phoenix and wanted to make it their home. The Federation had fought against them for years, trying everything from military threats to economic pressure. But Phoenix had something the Federation couldn't match: unique resources that couldn't be found or created anywhere else. Eventually, the Federation had been forced to recognize Phoenix as an independent world and valuable trading partner. As the new settlers walked down the ramp from their ship, Yun saw their expressions change from uncertainty to wonder. Most new arrivals expected a harsh survival outpost. Instead, they found a thriving community with gardens, schools, and comfortable homes. "Is that real food growing?" asked a small boy, pointing to a nearby garden where blue-leafed plants produced sweet fruits. "It is," Yun told him, bending down. "Would you like to try one?" After the welcoming ceremony, Yun walked alone to a quiet spot behind the main community center. Here, in a small garden, stood a simple stone marker. Carved into it was a single name: Zhu. Yun took out the worn journal that had started everything. Its pages were faded now, but the words still changed her life every time she read them. She sat on a bench beside the marker. "You were right," she said softly to her great-aunt's memory. It wasn't the worst planet. It was just waiting for someone who understood it. In the distance rose the most striking feature of the new Phoenix, a formation of crystal towers that caught the light of the setting sun. These towers hadn't been built by human hands. They had grown naturally after the colonists planted a particular strain of fungi in that area, creating structures more beautiful than any human architect could design. The crystals refracted the sunlight into streams of color that danced across the valley. Reds, golds, blues, and purples painting the landscape in ever-changing patterns. Scientists still didn't fully understand how or why the towers had formed, but they were studying them carefully. That was the true lesson of Phoenix. Even after 5 years, the planet kept surprising them. What looked like chaos had its own complex order. What seemed like poison could become medicine. What appeared worthless contained priceless treasures. As darkness fell, lights came on in homes throughout the settlement. Yun watched families gathering for evening meals, researchers working late in labs, artists capturing the unique beauty of their world. Phoenix wasn't perfect. Parts of the planet remained too toxic to visit. Strange weather still threatened outlying areas. But it was a world where problems became opportunities, where limitations sparked creativity. A small flying creature, something between a bird and a butterfly, landed briefly on Yun's shoulder before darting away. It was a species that existed nowhere else in the galaxy, evolved to thrive in this unique environment. Like that creature, the people of Phoenix had adapted and grown stronger. They had learned to listen to the planet rather than fight it. They had succeeded not by conquering a hostile world, but by understanding it. The universe's worst planet had become a paradise, and it was just the beginning. The end.